The subject today is going to be the partial body lift. In other words, the left side body lift to R&R, a 4L60E transmission. And this is a 1998 Chevy Tahoe K1500 four-wheel drive with a 5.7 gas engine in it. In other words, it's a 4x4 with a transfer case married transfer case on the rear of the transmission. Okay, the first thing you need to do the body lift on the left side is remove the grill. So to get the grill out, these tools are needed. You need a 7mm, a 1/4" drive, Phillips screwdriver, a little bit shorter Phillips screwdriver to take the turn signal lights out, a little straight screwdriver to kind of help you get things loose to remove the grill. Then, to get the core support bolts out and the body bolts down the left side, you need a 15mm 1/2" drive socket with a 12" long extension and an 8" long extension. The extension lengths can vary, but I like a nice long 1/2" drive ratchet to break them loose. Okay, the nut on the two front core support bolts is 18mm, fits that, and the top of the bolt is 15. So actually you just use the socket, you put it on the top, and you can hold the bottom with an 18, and then that gets your core support bolt out of your left side, and that's the way you would have to loosen it on your right side. Okay, then these right here, these are the tools you need. You need a 10, a 13, and a 15, 3/8 drive 15. It also helps you do the body bolts after you get them loose with a 1/2". But this is the steering shaft size, and then you have, this is for the electronic box that's behind the computer that's on the left fender well, and then this does the bolts that are on the left fender well right in here. This does the 3 bolts, the forward part of the fender. Actually, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one is actually just a small bolt that's 7mm that holds this fender extension right there. And then you have the 13s that go all around the edge here. These are all 13 head. Then you have 2 13s right here. These hold it to the cowl. These hold the fender liner to the cowl, the upper bolt to the cowl, and here's the lower bolt to the cowl. And these 3 here that are marked in red are 10mm. They hold the, there's a little wiring box there. And then these ones here that are 13. This is for the auxiliary battery tray. And these are for the bracket that holds the ECU and the ABS pump. And then once this is off, you'll be able to see the steering shaft bolt would be right here. And then here's another one that's 13. It holds this wiring right here. You want to disconnect that so that when you lift the body up, this doesn't pull tight. Okay, so anyway, now we're almost completed with the job. We have the transmission in. Transmission is installed. What I have to do now is put the left front tire on there, run the engine, check for leaks. One thing that I did forget to say that you have to remove is you actually have to remove this skid plate here, this very forward one, so you can access the bolts to the lower fan shroud. The lower fan shroud bolts are right underneath this. You remove that, you can get right to them. And then actually there's a little plastic filler panel right here that is tucked underneath the bumper that actually you have to remove from the lower part of the core support once this skid panel is removed. The tools that really help on the body lift is when you're going to put the body back down to position it properly. This really helps. I didn't really use it on mine, but I was able to drop the body down as I had it still on the floor jack underneath the rocker. I was able to center it with this underneath, and the body mount where the bolt goes up through, and then this also helped me center it too. But if you're having problems getting it centered, you use this porta power, this 4-ton porta power, and then you use some various wood blocks that you can stick inside there to bring it away from the frame, so that when you position, if you have to bring it to the left or to the right, you put these in position on the frame, and then you stick the duckbill up against the inner rocker. Anyway, these are the tools that are the final tools that actually help you get your body lined up. And as you start doing the job, the first thing that you want to do is disconnect the negative battery. Then you remove the upper part of this fan shroud. You lay this wire and the fan shroud out of the way, and then remove the ECU and tie this up out of your way, position it up out of your way, and then you remove the master cylinder from the power brake booster, but you do not unhook any of the lines or loosen any of the lines. Your hydraulics all stay still sealed, and when you remove that from the booster, that just gives you plenty of clearance. The other thing you have to do is you have to remove these lines here, your evap canister, okay, and then these brackets have to be removed. This one is the main one that supports the ECU. Once you flip the electronic control unit out of there and position it out of the way, you remove these bolts from the brackets. You remove the stand here from the bracket that holds the anti-lock brake system pump. Then, as you lift the body sideways to keep things from getting too tight, we remove this bracket right from here, right off of the AC compressor. This bracket kind of hung out of the way as the cables were still attached to the bracket itself. Then we unhooked the intake duct, so that as that positioned out of the way, there wasn't any kind of stretching problem or anything on that. And then the only other thing that we actually unhooked is the line here for the vacuum assist. Anyway, that gives you all the clearance. You can remove the master cylinder from the brake booster from here and from here, and when you remove that, your wiring bracket that holds this wiring loom, it actually stays in. It actually stays right on there. So that's about it that you really have to do under the hood, besides removing the grille, of course, to access your front radiator support bolts. And that's actually about it until you start getting underneath the vehicle to disassemble the frame bolts, your fuel filler, take your wheel off, your inner fender comes out, and then as you lift the body or you tilt the body up, getting that clearance really makes the job so much easier. Now it's got torsion bar front suspension, and what I've run into is that it's so tight to get the transfer case off from underneath the floorboard and to get the transmission out, that by unbolting the body makes it so it's almost possible. Anyway, to unbolt the body, you just really have to unbolt the left side. You have to take the bolts completely out of the left side. And on the right side, you just loosen them. You have 5 on this particular model, on a Tahoe, on each side. You have 1 in the core support, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 that actually mount the body to the frame. Now, in preparation for loosening the cab mounts, the first thing you have to do is you have to remove the inner fender on the left side. Okay, the only things that really hold the inner fender on the left side are 13mm head bolts. You have the 3 here. You have the ones that hold your computer and your ABS bracket right here. And then there's another small electrical box right here that goes into the rear part of it. And then here's the one for the battery tray. You remove the battery tray, you remove all of these. And then the ones around here, and then the inner fender drops out. When you drop the inner fender out, it gives you all the access for removing the master cylinder. Remove the master cylinder so you're not pulling real hard on your brake lines. You remove the master cylinder from the booster, and you kind of tie up where the ABS pump is. And then you have to remove the steering. Right here, the upper part of your steering shaft and the lower part of your steering column. And that is this bolt right here. This is the bolt that holds your steering shaft, your steering columns. You only really have to get on one side of it. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do, since this vehicle is equipped with an airbag, is you want to center your steering wheel and then take the key out so the steering wheel locks so that you're on center, so that your airbag reel does not get out of time. If the airbag reel gets out of time from center, you turn it and it pulls the reel out, the airbag light comes on, the airbag system is not functional then. Now, the other thing that you really have to do, say besides the brake lines, the ABS pump, the secondary electrical box, is you have to remove the lower and the upper part of your fan shroud. That gives you clearance to move the body up. As you get back towards here, the only thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that your wiring is loose here, that you're not pulling taut. And you unhook the fuel filler. The fuel filler cap housing goes into your quarter panel. That has to be loosened. Make room for that. The other thing that you have to do up here is where this wiring connection is right here. To keep this from getting taut, you unbolt this. That bracket bolts right to the top of the frame. Then the other thing you have to do is you have to undo your parking brake cable. The parking brake cable has a union right here. It goes together, passes through here. You undo that union, unclip it right here through your cab mount bracket. Then the parking brake cable comes out. The other thing you have to do is you have to remove your shift cable. You have to remove your shift cable from the shift cable bracket, because that pulls up and it gets nice and tight. So that, to keep that from getting taut, you undo that, and the cable has plenty of slack. Now, by doing it this particular way, it gives you all this room, so that when you remove your transfer case from your tail housing, the transmission, it gives you all the room to set that up into place. So to set up in there, you have absolutely no clearance problems in getting your transmission out. Now, when you get the transmission out, first you have to undo everything here on your bell housing, torque converter and everything. And then slide this in over the top of the torsion bars. It's a 2x6. After everything's removed, drive shaft. I still have some more disassembly to do. I have to get the torque converter bolts loose, this dustpan, things like that. But then it makes your access to your bell housing bolts, so you don't even need a long extension hardly. The only one you need a long extension on is that one on the right. And also by rocking the body this way, it gets this shielding all out of your way, so you're not fighting the cooler lines, you're not fighting trying to get these connections off. This is nice and far away. And another thing it makes is it makes your dipstick tube go in so much easier, because the body is shifted this way, so you have so much more room under there between the firewall tunnel and the top of the transmission. It just makes the lineup in the installation so easy by doing these extra steps. This is what it looks like when the left side bolts are removed. This is the amount of space that I was able to achieve with blocking it. And the other thing I did remove is I removed the cab mount biscuit from this side, so the block is directly on the ear of the frame, so that there's less movement, holds it nice and stable, and it's nice and free. You can get in any which way you want to get in to access whatever you want to access during your removal. Okay, that's it. 6 laying on top of the torsion bars. You know, what we have to do before you put this in is you have to remove the starter motor, which goes up in here. You have to remove the dust shield off the front of the transmission, and you have to undo the torque converter bolts from the flywheel or the flex plate. You leave the top of the bell housing bolted on, bolted solid. You get every other thing disconnected. While you have the transmission supported, you remove this transfer case. And now, this is actually the method. I'm using this hoist as an example, but this is really a method for doing it if you're doing it on the ground, if you're just jacking it up and working underneath it on the ground. What you want to do to hold up your transfer case is, if you're on the ground, get a nice big block like this. You could use cinder blocks maybe or something, but I use these 18-inch long rounds, and these are the wood blocks. And once you get it supported, you want to make sure that you don't change the height once you get the transfer case supported on these wood blocks. Once you're jacking up the jack, and it can go as high as you want, so you can slide the transfer case off relatively easy, and it fits. There's lots of room with that transmission tunnel, so you can tuck it back nice and far. The transmission has plenty of room to come back, and it slides straight down out of the vehicle. Upon reassembly, it's the same thing. It's much easier. Once you install the transmission on the back of the bell housing, we'll get all of our wiring connections and get our shift indicator in place, our backup light switch, safety switch that goes up. We'll have everything on there. Then we'll jack the transmission up into place, and then the transfer case will slide on there nice and easy. Now, to keep the transfer case so it stays there and it's nice and tight, or nice and safe, there's a tab. It's a little difficult to see, but there's a tab right up in here that you can actually put a bolt through and put it on the end of a chain link. And then you take a come along and you tie it to the end of the chain with a loop, and then put the come along into that loop and tie it like back here to the differential somewhere. And that holds the transfer case nice and secure. Okay, when you raise the body up, which I might not have covered that subject. When you raise the body up, the jacking point, the wood block, you set it right here on the rocker. This has this aftermarket running board, but that didn't really get in the way. The wood block's just set right up here in the rocker, and I was able to jack it straight up. And then I blocked it right here, and it's also blocked back here, which makes it nice and secure for working around it to access really pretty much anything that you really have to access. It makes all this room in here, all this up here, so it really makes the alignment of the transmission and transfer case so easy this way, because you can sure see what you're doing a lot easier. Okay, I guess that's it.